Divine presence. Night draped itself over the city in velvet shadows, broken only by the subdued glow of ancient ruins and the distant hum of traffic. Haru's high-rise apartment rose like a solitary citadel above the urban sprawl, a sanctuary where history's whispers mingled with the scent of parchment and ozone from humming machinery. Pillars etched with hieroglyphs, relics from the Nile's cradle, cast undulating patterns on bookshelves stacked with texts from Alexandria to modern-day quantum physics. In the penumbra, Haru reclined atop silk sheets, body rigid, breath barely stirring the charged air. A man somewhere between waking and the precipice of dream. Sweat purled at his temples, the air thick with incense and the faint tang of metal. As his mind slipped into the dreamscape, the world warped. The land before Haru was full of beauty and colors too vibrant to believe they were real. A desert loomed, sands phosphorescent beneath a sky roiling with galaxies and auroras. The air was laden with the scent of jasmine and burning myrrh. Every breath tasted of ancient secrets and far-off storms. Haru's heart beat a drumline, recalling tales of ancestors who traversed dreamscapes to commune with the gods. Ahead, a lone figure knelt, wings of rainbowed feathers trembling in the heat haze, their silhouette crowned with the unearthly glow of the aurora. The sand beneath Haru's feet was cool and alive, shifting with each cautious step, and the wind carried voices, fragments of Sufi poetry and the ululation of forgotten rituals. A portal, rimmed in scarab blue fire, spun open before him, its edges humming with potential. Haru did not hesitate. Stepping through, he dissolved into new dimensions. Elsewhere, the sterile chill of a government facility gnawed at the bones. Screens flickered with data feeds, infrared silhouettes, city grids, and coded transmissions. Agent Samuels, his features etched by years of clandestine warfare, leaned forward, the blue light making a mask of his face. His voice, clipped and surgical, sliced through the tension. Everything's in place. Prepare for extermination. His team, silent as tigers on the prowl, nodded in unison. The air was thick with anticipation, ozone, and the faint tang of gun oil. In seconds, a large squad of secret operatives burst into a dimly lit room, a lone woman sitting in the lotus position. As Black Ops agents surrounded the woman, she stood, hands raised in submission. In moments she was detained and escorted from the small apartment without any struggle. Later she was brought to a blacklisted site within the face of a mountain, doors camouflaged as mountain terrain. Behind the doors a vast tunnel led on for more than 5 miles. Here, darkness reigned. The only illumination, a single baleful red dot from a hidden camera, its electric eye unblinking. The unknown woman sat, wrists encircled by restraints more symbolic than strong, her posture regal despite sedation. Her skin prickled with the electric chill of anticipation, her mind sharp as obsidian. Overhead, Agent Samuel's voice crackled, now mechanically distorted, an automaton's threat. "You know why you're here." A sardonic smile curved her lips. "Enlighten me." The room's air was heavy, a mix of disinfectant and old fear. Projected images flickered over the table, surveillance stills, biometric scans, pages of classified reports. Samuel's words rattled like bones in a sistrum. "We know you've been dreamwalking. You are not an anomaly. We've identified you as an awakened creator. Every step, every flicker of consciousness, we've been watching for longer than you realize." She leaned forward, the fluorescent glare casting cavernous shadows across her face, accentuating the cool clarity in her gaze. "You look at dreamwalking as an anomaly, something to be catalogued and interrogated. But among those you call awakened creators, dreamwalking is the very threshold between worlds, a birthright of the woke. Those who've stirred the god particles within themselves step into dreams not to escape, but to harvest experience and knowledge, to bend reality in ways your instruments barely register." Her voice was a silken blade. "While you sleep, We gather truths, and every lesson learned behind closed eyes comes back with us. Manifest, tangible, powerful. Dreamwalking is not a trick to be threatened out of someone. It's a craft refined by those who have seen past the veil. Samuel's jaw tensed. Non-scenes there is no veil. You and your whole band are not more than conspiracy theorists. A band of feeble-minded miscreants upset at a world that abandoned you, searching for a sense of heightened existence. She regarded him with a cool disdain, her voice as smooth as oil on black marble. You sheep know nothing of the truth of reality. You hide behind comforts and biases, never willing to see the clear facts staring at you right in the face. You are the truly feeble-minded, regurgitating swallowed propaganda and spewing it back to the masses as irrefutable truth. I almost pity you. His fists curled, knuckles blanching. Enough with your misguided philosophies. I have my own truth and am in no need of another. However, we know there's one who has collected all 18 particles. We know that retrieving all 18 grants an awakened divine presence. You are going to tell who that is, and where they are. Now, the woman's laughter unfurled, resonant with echoing wisdom and reverence. The God body? Myths woven through the astral plane. True awareness is cosmic enlightenment, an awakening of the soul, the third eye open to all dimensions. Numerology, sacred geometry, they both resolve to 9, the divine number. There are only 9 God particles, each a fragment of universal consciousness. Anyone claiming 18 is lost in illusion, chasing shadows instead of embracing the oneness. Samuel's composure cracked. With a fist like a judge's gavel, he slammed the table. Enough with the riddles. Tell us how to locate the one called the Divine Presence. Leaning back, she studied him, her expression shifting from amusement to gravity. You know so much about it, you should know exactly where the Divine Presence is. I just told you there are 9 God particles to attain divine awareness. How many particles do you think I have after dreamwalking for the last 3 months? None of your files say anything about it either. Samuel scoffed, waving away her claims. Humph, self-grandeur. I see nothing special about you. I will ask one last time. Where is the divine presence? Her smile deepened, voice rich with prophecy. You think these chains can hold me? You know nothing of dreamwalking or the divine presence. Those who attain all 9 God particles can shape reality. Bend it, remake it. If only your mind is free. Power isn't taken, Agent Samuel's. It's reclaimed. As she spoke, the air around her shimmered with a heat that vibrated on the edge of vision. The cuffs hissed as molecules rearranged, metal warping and then vaporizing in silent tendrils of smoke. The taste of ozone and scorched steel filled the darkness. Alarm flashed in Samuel's eyes. He reached for his sidearm, voice ragged with panic. Stop! She rose, her tone a blend of whisper and thunder. In dreams, the laws of nature bow to will. Time cracked. With a blur of motion, she twisted free, body flickering between the solidity of flesh and the shifting liquidity granted only to those who had mastered the art of dreamwalking. She crashed through the one-way mirror, bulletproof glass erupting in crystalline shrapnel. The world slowed, details sharpened. The hum of electricity, the scent of adrenaline, the cold pulse of terror in her enemies. Guards poured in, weapons raised. The woman's voice, now serene as a mountain storm, named a style. Iron Tiger. Limbs became a blur, each strike both art and annihilation. She flowed among the guards, her hands weaving new realities, switching styles with the fluidity of a maestro. Capoeira, she whispered, spinning and flipping. Her legs became the wind itself, a cyclone of destruction. The guards fell, confusion and awe etched onto their faces as gravity seemed to bend around her. Softly now. Krav Maga. With brutal efficiency, she disarmed the last guard, movements as inevitable as fate. The air smelled of sweat, blood, and the coppery tang of fear. She stood among the fallen, eyes burning with purpose, locking onto Agent Samuels. He sneered, voice trembling with bravado and ferocity. You did rather well against the small fry. How about trying some of the prime cut? But before he could finish, she was upon him. A living storm. The world fractured. The scene darkened. No sound of battle, scuffle of feet. No clash of fist or iron, just utter silence. When the darkness receded, Agent Samuel stood as the victor, hands bloodied, the unknown woman subdued, her body battered and breath faint. Her spirit, however, still defiant. Details of their confrontation would remain forever shrouded in mystery. As the attending agents looked on in sheer disbelief, Samuels, voice cold and clinical, wiped crimson from his knuckles. Bring someone to retrieve the specimen. In a paradoxical realm of strange familiarity, a lone door sat on a sand dune awaiting its next visitor. Opening the door led to a room with an ever-expanding sky. The chamber inside the door was nothing like anything Haru had seen, but it felt familiar. A place beyond time, where swirling holographic timelines stretched between impossible angles. Here, the air crackled with a tension that could have split galaxies, resonating in Haru's bones. Before him, the luminous figure took shape, fashioned from the brightest solar flare and deepest shadow. His own visage, yet coruscating with divinity, eyes twin eclipses suspended in the void. The ground was blanketed in cool, flowing sands, trickling from titanic, floating hourglasses that drifted among the clouds. Sunlight bathed the realm, but the temperature wavered between the crispness of autumn and the warmth of summer, dancing across Haru's skin in shifting waves. The scents were sweet ozone, bitter ancient dust, and the tang of charged cosmic air. A voice, wrapped in thunder and silk, reached into Haru's marrow. Haru, you have journeyed as the 9 river gods and returned bearing the 9 principles. This feat has granted you the final 9 god particles of completion. You now have the 18 keys. Accept this divine decree. Release the 9 infinity seals and unlock your true self, your divine presence. You are no longer shackled by the illusion of reality. You are now and again a creator for it. Haru gazed at his hands, where the 18 god particles, luminescent orbs, humming with primordial resonance, floated and circled his fingers. Each one shimmered with a distinct spectral hue, casting prismatic patterns across the desert sands of the impossible chamber. Haru stood gazing at this divine form of self in front of him. 9 infinity seals, forged of celestial metal and bound with cosmic runes, were shackled around the radiant limbs and torso. Moving with ritual precision, Haru pressed 2 god particles into the first seal. The orbs dissolved, their energy racing through etched sigils, and the shackle burst in a silent flare of light. Again and again, he offered pairs of keys to each seal. With every unlocking, the chamber seemed to brighten, the cosmic air growing denser with possibility. As the 9th seal accepted the final 2 particles, all shackles dissolved into ribbons of gold and shadow. A surge of power rippled through Haru, and the chamber itself trembled. His divine self, incandescent, crowned with solar fire, extended translucent arms toward his slumbering astral form, suspended in the dream realm's shifting haze. Energy bridges arched between them, weaving flesh and spirit, memory and myth. The 2 selves drew closer, boundaries melting in a fusion of starlight and thought. With a final pulse that echoed through all timelines, Haru's divine and astral aspects fused, becoming one. His essence now indivisible, sovereign, and awake in the dream between realities. He inhaled, the taste of starlight sharp on his tongue. There's something that has placed the shackles upon my divine presence, by creating an illusion of reality. Who or what is it that controls the illusion? To say their name is to call their presence. Some things must be witnessed, replied the divine aspect, voice both cosmic and intimate. Abruptly, the chamber fractured like glass struck by a lightning bolt. Haru staggered beneath a vision. Hordes of non-physical entities, their forms impossible to grasp, nauseating masses of shadow and writhing bone that seemed to defy logic and shape. Merely glimpsing them, twisted reality, each presence gnawing at the edges of his perception and sending waves of sickness through him. Violence hung in the air, ancient and primal, robbing him of words, his breath ragged and shallow, his body recoiling in visceral dread. The thunder of battle folded into the echo of pursuit, every heartbeat a drumbeat of terror. These beings desired not flesh, but the very essence of emotion. This energy source was as tangible to them as blood, upon which they feasted greedily. These entities, those impossible masses of shadow and malice, do not simply gnaw at the edges of perception. They are architects of the false reality, masters in the art of manipulation. These beings, shimmering with a counterfeit divinity, have approached souls with radiant illusions since before time was recorded. They appeared bearing gifts that glint with promise, yet conceal heavy tolls for each blessing. This is the false light trap, an enchantment where what appears divine is, beneath the luster, a predatory snare. At the heart of their strategy lies the soul contract, a spiritual agreement forged by one's life choices. Under normal circumstances, each contract is a map, shaped by the trajectory of one's own actions, intentions, and commitments. However, a hijacked soul contract occurs when a person, weighed down by their own negative declarations or self-defeating thoughts, inadvertently opens the gates of their essence. In this vulnerable state, a false light being slips in, rewriting the sacred terms, chaining the soul to toxic relationships, endless life loops, and the cycles of stagnation. Caught between the false light trap and the hijacked soul contract, the individual becomes fodder for these entities. They do not feast on flesh, but on the essence of emotion. Fear, sorrow, longing, and despair, each wave of feelings siphoned and savored. The more one struggles, the tighter the entanglement grows, with each divine blessing meted out by the false light exacting a greater price, binding the soul ever deeper in contracts with pain. It is through this intricate dance of illusion and agreement that the false light beings feed, sustaining themselves on the emotional energies of those ensnared. Only those divergent to the illusory reality will be able to thwart the insidious plans of the false light's beings. As Haru was absorbing the knowledge of the false light beings, the world twisted. Haru found himself standing on a street unlike any he'd seen. Towering structures, veins pulsing with emerald flame, loomed overhead. Beings of every shape and armor clashed, the sky alive with weapon fire and alien storms. The ground trembled, the city's heartbeat drumming in Haru's feet. The air smelled of burning copper and the sweetness of distant rain. A presence stalked the periphery, massive unseen, its gaze a crushing weight on Haru's psyche. A voice, urgent but threaded with care, sliced through the chaos. "You must go now. It knows where you are." Haru barely registered the words before the unseen mass seized him, yanking him through a riot of combatants, ferrying him toward a gaping manhole in the scorched pavement. He plummeted through darkness ribbed with flickering sewer lights, the glow sliding over his face and armor in sickly hues. The relentless echo of pursuit vibrated in his bones. The passageway dead-ended, a seamless wall. Yet the being did not hesitate, drawing Haru straight through the matter, which rippled around him, cool as water and sweetly metallic. He awoke with a start, lungs burning as if struck by lightning. The high-rise apartment was cloaked in shadow. His breath hung on the air, thick with anticipation. He noticed the difference in his body and features. He felt younger, light as air and strong as Atlas. A radiant energy pulsed throughout his body from his pineal gland, filling every neuron with searing clarity. He gripped the edge of his bed, eyes wide as the voice, ancient, colossal, echoed within. You are chosen, Haru. You have received the divine decree. Your mind is now boundless, your consciousness unfettered. Wield the divine presence, locate the others, begin the ripple. Haru exhaled, and the room's shadows recoiled from the force of his will. Details sharpened. The flutter of a moth's wings, the distant click of a streetlight outside, the faint metallic anticipation of danger. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and ozone. His eyes glimmered, lattices of possibility unfolding in his mind's eye. The clarity was blinding, like staring at the heart of a comet. He seized his phone, fingers racing, bypassing encrypted firewalls and government satellites with ease. The screen glowed, coordinates flashed. A forgotten island, shrouded in myth, its secrets buried beneath centuries of secrecy. He grinned, breath tinged with the salt of impending freedom. Let's see them chase me across water and legend. Haru felt his outfit and appearance changing. Now wearing a tactical exosuit shot down the alleyways, limbs flailing as he tried to adjust to his newfound speed. Each step launching him halfway across the pavement before he could blink. He attempted a leap, overshot it, and smashed into a dumpster with a spectacular clang, sending garbage bags skyward like confetti. He rebounded, ricocheted off a brick wall, whirled unintentionally through a pile of cardboard boxes, and skid across the slick pavement on one shoe. A startled cat yowled as Haru tumbled over a fire escape. Landing in a heap, his face lit with manic awe. Not as easy as I thought. Behind him, the government squad skids to a halt. Jaws dropped as Haru pinballed through the alley with the grace of a caffeinated tornado. Despite the chaos, Haru grinned, windmilling his arms and muttering. Note to self, speed of thought comes with a learning curve and zero dignity. Haru briefly shut his eyes, focusing the energy in his pineal gland. His mind swiftly assessed every factor, angle, friction, and variable. With restored command, he moved with intention, skillfully navigating obstacles with impressive precision and ease. What once seemed random now unfolded in smooth, calculated motions. Landing perfectly on a rooftop, Haru calmly remarked, "Class dismissed," leaving the squad watching in amazed silence. Haru glances back, grinning. If they're the brains of this operation, consider me the brawn, the brains and the entire curriculum. The squad rounded the corner, moving with crisp, synchronized precision, night vision visors glinting, weapons held in flawless formation. Each operative's stance betrayed elite training. Disciplined, methodical, black-clad silhouettes honed for the impossible. Microphones hissed with coded orders. Their tactics were textbook, their reputation legendary. Yet as Haru spun between them, sidestepping bullets with uncanny grace, their formation faltered. Not for lack of skill, but confronted by something beyond human calculation. Scaling a wall in 2 strides, Haru landed on a rooftop, evading thermal scans and radio triangulation as if the rules of engagement no longer applied. Agent Number 1's voice crackled urgently through the tactical comms, the urgency in their tone underscored by the hum of encrypted signals bouncing off fiber-optic grids. Subject defies all known parameters, requesting protocol escalation. Even as the squad responded, their movements precise, governed by years of training in urban combat and psychological warfare, Haru materialized before them. A blur that bent the threads of time and perception. The agents' bodies, clad in the latest non-reflective tactical gear, shifted into formation. Biofeedback sensors relayed heart rates to command, while augmented reality visors projected predictive threat models directly onto their retinas. Leeuwenhoek micro-drones swarmed above, collecting atmospheric data, searching for any anomaly. But Haru was already in motion, his presence a ripple in the quantum fabric of the city street. A figure who seemed to rewrite the equations that governed their reality. Haru, lips curled in a half-smile, addressed them with a voice that resonated deeper than mere sound, vibrating with a subtle energy that seemed to move the very air. Congratulations, you've just signed up for advanced metaphysics. Class is now in session. He cracked his knuckles, a gesture that sent a faint vibration through the cracked sidewalk. His movement was not merely swift but preternatural. Every style, capoeira's rolling grace, Krav Maga's brutal efficiency, Shaolin's fluid precision, layered atop a musculature both engineered and honed. Haru's body was a living arsenal, each motion a lesson in biomechanics and kinetic chain optimization. The squad countered expertly, their algorithms recalibrating in microseconds, anticipating every shift of Haru's weight, every vector of attack. Yet his strikes landed with impossible accuracy. Each dodge was a violation of Newtonian physics, his attacks met and overcome by a force that seemed to draw energy from the earth itself. A resonance with the city's buried ley lines, its labyrinth of iron and stone. Agent number 2, voice steady despite the chaos, called out above the din. Engage suppression, grid formation. Don't let him breach the line. Haru cartwheeled between two agents, intercepting a carbon fiber baton mid-spin, flipping its wielder with a burst of momentum calculated to exploit the body's weakest fulcrum. Neural inhibitors and non-lethal grenades detonated nearby, their electromagnetic pulses slowing his progress for less than a heartbeat. Then, with a sweep of his arm, another operative crashed onto fractured concrete, biosuit registering impact thresholds but failing to prevent injury. In the distance, sirens wailed, an auditory signature of reinforced police units converging, their arrival tracked by the squad's tactical overlay. The urgency pressed in, each operative moving in perfect synchrony, masks hiding their fear beneath layers of discipline and strategic intent. Still, Haru pivoted, arms outstretched, orchestrating chaos as if conducting the entropy of the universe. A masterclass not only in agility, but in transcendence of human limitation. Agent number 1, stammering but composed, relayed into the comms. He's everywhere at once, adapting faster than our AI models can predict. Their words echoed in the command center, where analysts scrambled to update behavioral algorithms and recalibrate neural nets in real time. Haru's eyes flashed, pupils dilating with the surge of latent energy, a measurable spike in the electromagnetic spectrum that registered on nearby sensors. For a moment, the squad hesitated, recalibrating, tension razor-edged. Then, headlights slashed across the street, backup converging. Yet Haru was already gone, vanished folded between moments, his trajectory mapped only by the lingering afterimages on infrared and LiDAR. All that remained was the echo of his laughter, reverberating through the shattered pavement, and the spiderweb cracks marking his passage. The team of world-class operatives, equipped with the finest technology and honed by years of experience, was left standing amidst the aftermath, minds racing to comprehend a force far beyond mortal measure. Dusk spilled gold across the remote Pacific island shore as Haru stepped lightly from the water, grains of sand clinging to his bare, calloused feet. He moved with the calm confidence of one accustomed to both the weight of history and the lightness of myth. His features, sculpted resolute, shaded with the rich spectrum of his melanin, were offset by the sharp geometry of a knotted fade, its lines catching the last amber rays of sun. The sand shifted beneath Haru's feet as he paused atop the pale strand, the glow of sunset tracing unfamiliar angles along his frame. He caught his reflection in a tide pool. The breadth of his shoulders had altered, now broader and more angular, while his skin shimmered with an undertone altogether new, a coppery luster that hadn't been there hours before. The sharp geometry of his haircut softened, curls gathering in unexpected places, and his cheekbones, once chiseled, now held a different symmetry, as if sculpted anew by unseen hands. Even his eyes, now a startling shade somewhere between obsidian and jade, glimmered with a facetious intelligence, unanchored from the face he remembered. Haru huffed a short laugh, gaze skipping from his reflection to the horizon. "Really?" he said aloud, voice tinged with wry amusement. At this rate, I feel like I'm being randomly generated by some cosmic author. Re-roll the dice, shift a feature here, shade the skin there. A living patchwork of prototypes. He flexed his hands, watching veins rise and vanish, wondering if even these fingerprints were temporary. Yet, as the wind toyed with the changing lines of his jaw, and the distant thunder rolled like a drumbeat from the heart of the world, Haru felt neither alarm nor discomfort. Instead, there was a peculiar awareness. A realization that the true self is not one person, it's the essence of all that encompasses life. Here on this shore, even the sand seemed to remember countless forms. Haru paused, feeling not exhaustion but a gentle inertia, the kind that lingered after a meditative run through the parklands of an ancient city or the bamboo forests of his youth. The air, thick with salt and the whisper of far-off storms, pressed around him, not with urgency but with quiet anticipation. He inhaled deeply, drawing in the scent of brine, the distant tang of volcanic stone, the faint perfume of wild ginger carried on winds that had circled the globe. He was untouched by harm. No wounds, no bruises from the confrontation he'd just escaped. The engineered marvel of his body radiated vitality. Blood flowed beneath his skin, denser and richer than that of any mortal, gleaming with the luster of polished steel. Yet even this vessel, crafted by science and myth, obeyed the slow rhythms of transformation. His body could not bleed, no matter the violence inflicted upon it. His cells, bioengineered and divine, refused to yield. The pulse beneath his skin was steady, a quiet testament to a power that surpassed the limitations of natural selection. It was here, on this unnamed island, that Haru paused, letting the sand cradle his heels and dusk cool the surface of his skin. Detachment settled over him, a sovereign calm. His mind, usually a torrent of calculations and kinetic scheming, grew still. He listened for the deeper machinery of change, the ancient gears within his spirit that turned slower than battle, slower than the human lifespan itself. Haru's thoughts rolled like the Pacific tide. It's strange, this body, forged rather than born, shrugs off violence with ease. Pain is a language I barely remember, but traces of the old world linger. Even gods, it seems, cannot rush every metamorphosis. Some parts, subtle, patient, take time to yield. He lifted his gaze to the horizon, where the sea met the sky in a seamless curve. He invoked his gift, divine sight, a faculty that blurred the edges of reality, peeling back layers to reveal the bones of the world. Ancient tectonic scars beneath the island, roots of trees tangled with the relics of a lost civilization, the shimmer of electromagnetic fields rippling above coral reefs teeming with life. On the scientific periphery, the Pacific's volcanic islands are known for their biodiversity and isolation. Haru's senses, both mystical and analytical, registered the warmth of the Kuroshio Current, the hum of trade winds, the faint, seismic memory of long-dead eruptions. The world was not merely seen or heard, but tasted, felt, and known, each atom humming the history of its creation. The world is layered. Every secret waits for eyes that can see. Somewhere beneath these tangled roots, the past whispers to me, promising absolution or apocalypse. Even now, my power feels borrowed, fleeting. Time is the only currency I cannot earn back. A pulse, soft, golden, resonant, beckoned from the heart of the mangrove jungle. Haru followed, muscles working with effortless precision as he navigated brambles and mud, feeling the tickle of insects and the weight of humidity. He unhurriedly found the source, an ancient chest corroded by salt and rimmed with barnacles. The lock, rusted but ornate, surrendered to his touch. Within, moonlight struck treasure, jewels and doubloons from sunken galleons, an amulet thrumming with an energy that predated the written word. Their deficit, their debt. I can erase it with a whisper of gold. But what if I give more than currency, more than sanctuary? What if I change destiny itself? He pressed his hands together, forming the Earth Mudra, and using his divine hand ability, a blood-red aura shot from his body and eyes in a violent manner. The energy surged through him, an arc of lightning, the kind that splits atoms and births worlds, the kind that scientists call plasma and theologians call grace. The sand beneath his feet trembled, then lifted, pulled by the relentless force of creation. The shoreline stretched, mangroves giving way to plains, then forests, then rivers and mountains. In minutes, the island grew, out and out, until it rivaled the African continent, its landscape shimmering with impossible abundance. Biomes unfolded. Rainforests rich with endemic orchids and lemurs, savannas scattered with acacia, mountain ranges veined with minerals. Cities without borders blossomed. Homes grown from mycelium and basalt, towers twined with bioluminescent vines, infrastructure harmonizing with the ecology rather than exploiting it. Crops, cassava, millet, rice, yam, flourished side by side with wheat and maize. Livestock grazed lush pastures. Rivers teemed with tilapia and catfish. Energy, endlessly renewable, was drawn from sun, wind, and geothermal vents, distributed by a grid smarter than any since the birth of the Internet. When scarcity governs a life, necessity becomes the harshest law. The primal urge to survive can drive even the gentlest heart toward desperate acts. I have seen how lack breeds fear and how fear sharpens into crime. How, when confronted with hunger, a person's instincts override the boundaries of law and conscience. In the shadow of poverty, what is forbidden by society becomes justified by survival. But abundance has a transformative power. When people no longer struggle for shelter or bread, the cycle of desperation dissolves. Freed from the tyranny of lack, they need not steal, deceive, or fight for scraps. Their minds and spirits rise above old patterns, seeking higher purpose, connection, creation, meaning. To improve a people's condition is to quell the storm of survival, to invite them into a life where conscious awakening is possible. The simple act of meeting their needs becomes the foundation for peace, trust, and the blossoming of their higher selves. In this way, I do not merely offer sanctuary. I offer freedom from the chains of necessity, space to awaken, to love, to shape destiny together. Science supported his vision. Ample evidence from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, from studies on universal basic income, from the successes of social democracies worldwide. Haru's intuition, shaped by experience and encoded wisdom, resonated with these facts. Within 6 months, Tamari became the site of the single greatest migration in human history. 1.6 billion souls, children, elders, families of every heritage, left behind famine, war, and slums for a continent of possibility. Yet it was not ships, aircraft, or maglev trains that carried them across the world. It was Haru, reaching into the heart and mind of every man, woman, and child, weaving his omnipresence through the latticework of consciousness. With a whispered invocation of Godspeed, he granted each person passage at the speed of thought, a migration so instantaneous and sublime that it would be remembered for generations as the rapture. Across every border and ocean, the experience defied the ordinary laws of distance and time. One heartbeat, and they arrived together, transformed by the grace of movement unbound. With the treasure unearthed from the island's heart, Haru established a government and economy blending the best of history's failed experiments. Direct democracy, meritocratic councils, robust public health, education free of charge, and a justice system rooted in restorative practice. The spiral of roads, inspired by the golden ratio, linked each city, facilitating the flow of goods, ideas, and culture. At the continent's center, amidst terraced gardens and crystalline lakes, the Amenti Hall rose. This was not mere architecture, but a living organism. A cathedral grown from basalt and laced with water, its walls breathing, its halls humming with quantum information. Here, the awakened gathered, scientists, healers, philosophers, artists, visionaries. They learned, taught, created, and meditated, their collective intent shaping the future. Amenti Hall is more than a place. It is the heart of the new world, the crucible where we shape our destiny together. I built it for those ready to awaken, to create, to carry the light forward. Tama re-thrived, a living testament to what is possible when technology, ecology, and spirit are aligned. Yet, as in all stories of creation, darkness stirred in the periphery. Profiteers plotted, unable to exploit this new order. Ancient malice, drawn by the continent's radiance, watched from beyond mortal sight. A malevolent entity whose presence chilled the very air. From this vantage, Haru stood, equal parts guardian and architect, his senses tuned to the vibrato of danger and the possibility of redemption. It was here, in the hush before the next act, that the true test would begin. The crucible of self-space in the astral realm was a shifting tapestry. Fragments of memory, twisted with longing and fear, tangled across a landscape that blurred the boundary of dream and waking consciousness. Here, Sven stood at the precipice of his own becoming, a solitary figure bracing against the psychic wind that whistled through unseen canyons. The terrain responded not only to his footsteps, but to the thrum of his heart, his guilt shaping every shadow and glimmer of light. Before him loomed the dweller on the threshold, a manifestation as old as myth, as intimate as shame. It wore the faces of his darkest moments, morphing with every tremor of doubt. A snarl echoing with white-knuckled rage, lips curled into a sneer of self-hatred, hands trembling with remembered violence. The air itself thickened, saturated with the metallic scent of old blood and the sour tang of regret. You think you can outrun what you are? The dweller's voice was many, its resonance vibrating through Sven's marrow, a discordant chorus that made his teeth ache. You think meditation, atonement, can erase the blood in your veins, the hate in your heart? The realm fractured and reformed, becoming a kaleidoscope of Sven's past. He saw himself angry, desperate for belonging, heard the echoes of slurs chanted in the night, felt again the cold weight of discovering the truth of his heritage, the moment his adoptive parents revealed the story of his melanin, his ancestry colliding with the fiction he believed. Shards of humiliation and fury stabbed through him. Beneath them, a raw ache for forgiveness. You are a contradiction, Aryan brother, son of Africa. You belong nowhere. Your hands have done harm. Your words have poisoned. Redemption is a mirage you'll never reach. The dweller pressed, its gaze relentless. Suddenly, the scenery dissolved. Sven found himself in a field scattered with countless mirrors, each one reflecting a fractured version of himself. The youth twisted by bigotry, the man isolated by revelation, the soul adrift between two worlds. He shouted, and the air vibrated with his anguish, but the mirrors only multiplied, their surfaces alive with his failures, his lost years, the certainty that forgiveness was for others, not for him. Yet, beneath the cacophony of accusation, a quieter voice surfaced, his own, trembling but luminous. I am sorry. I am ashamed. But, if meditation has taught me anything, it's that I am more than the test of my past. The dweller surged, growing taller and darker, eyes emerging across its shifting form, each one a pinpoint of accusation. Then prove it. Cast aside the hate. But you will find yourself empty. You are nothing without the story you despise. Sven fell to his knees, an earthquake of memory shaking him to the core. He relived the violence of his former life, the camaraderie fueled by hate, the lonely years of penance, the slow journey toward compassion. But through the pain rose a fragile hope. The memory of silent, solitary hours, the discipline of meditation, the effort to reach beyond himself, to offer small kindnesses until they became sincere. He stood battered, but with a new resolve, gazing into the dweller's multitude of eyes. I am not what you say I am. My choices are my own. I choose growth, truth, and being better, right now, and every day that follows. Light exploded from his center, dazzling and pure, refracted through the mirrors and shattering them one by one. The dweller shrieked, its body splintering as Sven's self-forgiveness blossomed, a radiant defiance. As the last fragments dissolved, he was left alone, transformed, his heart open and awake. Empathy surged through him, powerful and distinct. He felt the world's hope and anguish, not as distant concepts, but as if they were his own. Pain and tenderness, heartbreak and love, the unity of all sentient experience. A tremor ran through the air, stirring something deeper, a sensation unlike any he'd known. Sven felt an approaching presence, pulsing with a resonance that seemed to bend the very laws of probability and perception. The fabric of the astral world quivered in anticipation, and a knock sounded, gentle, insistent, at his bedroom door, bridging dream and waking. His physical body shivered. The city sounds filtered through, muted by the thunderous silence inside. He hesitated at the door, breath ragged, the immensity of his transformation threatening to overwhelm him. Another knock, more urgent this time. Sven opened the door. Standing before him was a man whose face was carved from a painful memory. A man of melanin, scarred and dignified, an echo from Sven's most shameful act. Sven's composure shattered. Tears welled in his eyes, a mixture of regret and awe. He remembered all that had been done to the man. Sven's heart crumbled as tears streamed while he shouted for all to hear. "I am so sorry. I know I was wrong, and you have your right to want vengeance, and I won't stop you." He sniffled as he continued, "Again, I am so sorry." Haru, revealing his divine self, spoke to Sven with compassion and wisdom. "No, Sven, you are not sorry, but your apology is accepted." Sven, seeing the compassion and divinity, asked in earnest if God had come to him. Haru's mouth twitched in a gentle smile. "I am no more divine than you, my friend. I know who you are, and who you used to be. The violence, the bigotry, and more importantly, the solitude and the struggle to find yourself again. I've seen the man you were, and the one you are now. I admire your strength, the courage it takes to face such a past, and the compassion you've chosen every day since." Sven's breath caught, emotions swirling, surprise and relief, gratitude and grief. He met Haru's gaze, searching for judgment, finding only warmth. "I didn't think anyone could understand, or even care to try," he whispered. Haru laid a steady hand on Sven's shoulder, grounding him in the moment, the pressure both comforting and commanding. "You are not alone. Your journey has given you a heart open enough to feel for others, even after all you've been and done. Your choice to reverse the negative and seek out enlightenment. That's a rare ability and a necessary one. Sven, the world needs us and the awakened abilities we've unlocked now more than ever." They stood together in silence, the air around them alive with possibilities. Haru's eyes glinted, becoming luminous, and reality rippled. A vision blossomed in the space between them. Phantom figures appeared, not bound by the laws of physics. Conscious entities, flickering with alien intelligence, their forms mutable, their intentions inscrutable. These were the architects of falsehood, their tendrils weaving a web over humanity, obscuring truth and compassion beneath layers of mental fog. The sight seared Sven's consciousness. He doubled over, nausea roiling in his gut, his body racked with sobs and retching as the enormity of the revelation crashed through him. When the vision faded, he was left trembling, hollowed by horror. Haru's voice was a balm, grave and steady. "Now you know, Sven, the illusion is sustained by those who cannot be touched, only revealed. But we are not powerless." As dawn broke beyond the window, the city awakening to a new day, Sven inhaled deeply, transmuting his terror into resolve. He looked at Haru, nodding, a silent agreement forged in the crucible of self-awareness. Together, they stepped into the pale morning light, their shoulders squared, prepared to walk not only their own paths, but to carry the world's burdens and dreams as one. Layla Rahman had always existed on the periphery. As a child in Mumbai, she wandered the labyrinthine alleyways alone. Her parents lost to a car crash whose suddenness shattered the security of family and tethered her to solitude. Her adolescence became a study in survival and silent observation. The hum of traffic below her rooftop perched a distant reminder of a world that moved on without her. In the shadows, Layla bore witness, not to spectacle, but to the quiet suffering and resilience etched into the lives of those around her. At night, she would gaze at the constellations, tracing patterns learned from Indian astronomy, marveling at the celestial dance above the crowded city. Grief became her axis, but curiosity pressed her onward. It was on a rain-slick rooftop, the air heavy with the scent of petrichor and distant incense, that Haru found her. He was unlike anyone she'd ever encountered, a presence both grounding and effervescent, as if carrying the memory of civilizations unseen. Haru was known among a secretive network as an awakened creator and architect of Tamari, the continent he conjured in the heart of the Pacific Ocean. Tamari was a place where ancient African wisdom met modern science, its design inspired by the principles of sacred geometry and sustainable living. Haru's invitation was wordless, a familial embrace, a gesture of trust, and a cautionary glance toward the horizon. In a breath, he carried them both across continents. One moment, Layla's feet soaked by Mumbai's monsoon. The next, standing beneath alien stars on the newly formed shores of Tamari. The quantum leap defied physical understanding, echoing quantum physicists whose research hinted at the possibility of entangled movement, though seldom so bold as this act. Surrounded now by kindred spirits and a borderless continent of ancient knowledge, Layla discovered her purpose. Discipline and meditation, rooted in both yogic tradition and neuroplastic research, became her foundation. Through repeated dream walking, she traversed the veil between realms. Her consciousness expanded, and through the acquisition of 3 God particles, fundamental building blocks of reality, she awakened the legendary divine fighter ability. Before Haru brought Sven to Tamari, Layla stood transformed, a beacon of spiritual power, her isolation transmuted into intention. Concealed on the edge of the continent lay Rhapsody Grove, its existence whispered among the world's elite. Beneath lush, moonlit canopies, politicians, magnates, and shadow brokers mingled, not in chaos, but in ritual. The grove's marble altars and obsidian totems reflected a culture steeped in both ancient mystery traditions and modern psychological manipulation. Tonight, the benevolent rite focused on a young homeless man, known only for his unwavering Christian faith. His hands trembled as masked attendants guided him to the center, where a circle of salt, emblematic of purification in many cultures, shimmered beneath torchlight. Sylvester Kane presided, silver-haired and meticulous, his manner blending warmth with an undercurrent of calculation. Beside him stood Esme Vander, whose gaze cut deeper than glass, her every word calibrated for effect. "You are chosen, friend. Tonight, you are the vessel for healing. Allow us to lift your burdens," Sylvester intoned, his voice sonorous and reassuring. Esme leaned in, her tone gentle, coaxing. "Trust us. What weighs upon your soul will be transformed. You need only surrender." The ritual was more than pageantry. Ancient chants, their syllables borrowed from lost languages and modern neurolinguistic programming, echoed through the grove, driving the man to confront every regret, every sorrow, a parade of memory and failure. The ordeal pressed until he could bear no more. "This is what I deserve. My life will never be the same," the man sobbed, voice fractured, body trembling. In the flickering gloom, a repugnant darkness stirred from his shadow, a phenomenon that some would try to write off as psychological catharsis or even dissociation. Nonetheless, the ritual succeeded. The elite's eyes glittered as the entity converged, twisting the man's form into an outward manifestation of despair, a grotesque silhouette writhing with pain and potential. Within the labyrinth of the man's mind, agony dissolved into radiant vision. He ascended inwards, drifting toward a cathedral of light. Its architecture borrowed from memory and hope, its stained glass alive with scenes of forgiveness and redemption. Psychological constructs that mirror real-world accounts of near-death experiences and states of transcendence. I am seen. I am worthy, the man thought with awe. The angels gather, their faces shining with promise. Through suffering I rise, my sins washed away by mercy not of this earth. Invisible hands, perhaps imagined, perhaps not, rested upon his brow, igniting his spirit with a warmth akin to holy fire. Illusion wove itself as truth. He was anointed, chosen, entrusted with a mission by the divine. The burden of failure lifted, replaced by the certainty of sacred purpose. Psychological studies would call this reframing. Here, it was benediction. Pain reborn is power. You are remade by the soul contract, Sylvester murmured, voice low and calculated. Esme whispered close, her words a gentle command. Go forth. Cast their ideals into shadow. Recast the veil of the false light trap. When the ritual concluded, the man was changed, his identity subsumed, reprogrammed as a vessel of dark intent, dispatched to destroy Haru and Tamari. The Grove's elite, veiled in self-righteousness, watched with quiet triumph as their creation vanished into the night, their whispered chant, "May the Archons ever reign, lest the ripples come again," echoing the ancient belief in unseen rulers. The corridors of Monarch 32 hummed with a concealed and formidable energy, hidden deep beneath layers of reinforced concrete and encrypted security protocols. This was no ordinary government facility. It was a clandestine military nexus, engineered at the intersection of secrecy and innovation. Along its labyrinthine passageways, biometric scanners glowed with spectral blue, analyzing retinal patterns and voice commands before permitting passage. Surveillance drones, silent as shadows, patrolled the airspace between armored blast doors, their lenses mapping every movement and micro-expression. Within the central operations hub, holographic displays floated above obsidian consoles, projecting tactical maps, live satellite feeds, and encrypted communications that flickered with classified urgency. The ceiling bristled with sensor arrays, each one tuned to detect the faintest electronic pulse or psychic disturbance. Walls that seemed solid at a glance were, in fact, embedded with nanofiber mesh, capable of shifting opacity or broadcasting countermeasures at a moment's notice. Data streamed through quantum processors tucked into soundproof vaults, their computations unknowable to conventional machines. In the adjoining labs, neural interface terminals and prototype exosuits hinted at human-machine symbiosis, while deep within the lowest levels, containment cells with negative pressure shields held secrets deemed too dangerous for daylight. Monarch 32 was designed to be invisible, a specter on no map, anchored by technologies years ahead of the world's militaries. Yet tonight, its focus was singular, the entire edifice bending its will toward the command center, where destinies were rewritten with every encrypted transmission. Agent Samuels noticed little of this, for the room seemed to vibrate with something deeper, an undercurrent that prickled his skin and tightened his chest, as if the very air was saturated with expectation. Beneath his shirt, the cool metal of a Protestant cross pressed against his heart, a relic of comfort carried from childhood, now a silent witness to his mounting doubts. Samuel sat alone at the operations desk. His trembling hand hovered above the phone, its sudden ring slicing through the hush like a scalpel. Each vibration seemed to echo inside his bones, a summons not just to action, but to a fate he'd long denied. He answered, voice raw with fatigue and anticipation. A voice low, resonant, omnipresent, filled the room, yet seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once, vibrating more in the marrow than the ear. Samuels, the architects must never bend to the awakened. It is the defined purpose of Monarch 32. It was built for this moment. You will act now. Samuel swallowed, his spiritual and rational selves warring beneath his skin. In that instant, all his training, decades spent in government service, the late nights decoding encrypted transmissions, the endless psychological assessments, felt insubstantial as mist. Samuels recalled the first call he'd received from the mysterious chairman. It had been a decade since that first call, 10 years since the voice that now dominated his every waking thought had first reached through the static and secrecy to mark him. Samuels remembered the night with a clarity that bordered on obsession. He had been a young analyst then, diligent but untested, his world defined by the code he cracked and the protocols he obeyed. The hour had been late, the hum of the servers a lullaby of routine. But the phone rang, an innocuous device in a fortress of technology, and from its speaker poured a resonance that defied explanation. The chairman spoke not with words but with a presence, as if language itself was a mask for something older, colder, and infinitely more knowing. Samuels had felt his reality warp, the coordinates of duty and faith shifting beneath him. Samuels, you have been chosen. The architects wait in silence for the awakened to stir. You must listen, for this world is a labyrinth and you are its key. His heart thundered, the pressure of expectation fusing with a creeping exhilaration. A question trembled on his lips, unasked, unanswered, while the voice carved itself into the deepest layers of his psyche. That first call seeded the doubts and devotions that would define the next decade of his life. Who? Who am I speaking to? His words were barely more than a whisper, reverent, almost prayerful. I am the revelation. I am the truth you seek, the destiny you serve. I am. The voice resonated with a certainty that left no room for skepticism. Samuels felt knowledge unfurl within him. Images, answers, prophecies weaving together, illuminating the darkened corners of his soul. For a flicker of a moment, he glimpsed the architecture of fate. Clandestine organizations, psychological operations, even the ritual uses of neuro-linguistic programming, their patterns converging into a singular purpose. He gasped, the question tumbling out, childlike in its need. Are you God? I am older than the concept of your God mortal. Samuels's composure fractured. He bowed his head, crossing himself, tears threatening at the corners of his eyes. All the guilt, the years of moral ambiguity, seemed to dissolve in a wash of awe. Now in the present Samuels was an ever-humble steward to the mysterious presence he revered as God. Why, yes, sir. I'll get right on it. No mistakes. I am your servant. The line went dead, replaced by a silence thick with revelation. Samuels lingered there, caught between worldly duty and a surge of faith that fused his sense of self with a terrifying new purpose. The cross at his chest now burned as both blessing and brand. Research would call it reframing. He knew it as benediction. Steeling himself, he strode from his isolation and into the operations hub. A cavernous space alive with the flicker of data and the nervous energy of subordinates, already half aware that the world had shifted in some invisible, irrevocable way. His voice, when he spoke, was forged in steel and certainty, shorn of the uncertainty that had haunted him for months. Listen up. Our mission comes from a place beyond comprehension. Find Haru and the awakened creators. Do not fail. He paused, letting the words resonate, his gaze piercing each agent with a force that unsettled even the most seasoned operatives. Your failure will be your life's forfeiture. The threat, veiled in religious fervor and psychological intent, sent a chill through the room. Agents dispersed quickly, their movements sharp, purposeful. The protocols they followed, surveillance feeds, tactical briefings, encrypted communications, were underpinned by something older, more primal, a commandment, a sacred mandate.